Hi guys, if this is your favorite mouse, then most likely that this replacement will be what you might want to consider. Okay, so this is the infamous Razer Viper Mini mouse, and this mouse was released in 2020, but in my knowledge, I've been using this mouse for like the longest time because somehow the Razer Viper Mini has been my favorite shape. I've gone through many mice, not as many as some of the more famous mouse reviewers on YouTube, because some of the most famous mouse reviewers have tried hundreds, if not almost 1,000 mice by now. Well, maybe 1,000 is a bit of exaggeration, but they have at least tried hundreds of mice. And in my so-called gaming career, I've probably only tried about 20 or maybe like 15 mice. So I'm definitely not as good of a gamer or a mouse reviewer as them, but this is my attempt at reviewing this Delux M800 Mini, which is the successor or the direct clone of the Razer Viper Mini, but they have made it wireless. So in my memory, I think Razer has attempted to so-called build successors to it. The most famous one I think is the Razer Viper Mini Signature Edition, which is like titanium and like cost more than 200, like about 300 USD, which is way out of my reach, so I didn't have that because the Razer Viper Mini was a really good mouse back in 2020 because of its budget price. Like back then I got it for about 50 or 60 like Singapore dollars, so it was a good budget mouse. It was considered lightweight for its time, and I really like the shape and everything associated with it. It was my favorite mice for very long. And I think more recently in 2023, I've seen reviews of the Razer Cobra or Cobra Pro along those lines, and I didn't like it because the Razer Cobra actually needed like a lithium battery inside, which is very similar to the old sort of like the Logitech G305s, I think, which added a lot of unnecessary weight to it. So it made the Razer Cobra Pro like almost 80 grams, which is way too much, because this on theory on the spec sheet is only 61 grams, and like the Delux M800 I believe should be in the 50 gram range. So yeah, the 70-ish gram or 80 gram Razer Cobra was a bit too much for me. Okay, so let's move on to compare these two mouse. So again, this is the Delux M800, and I bought the most basic Delux M800 version I could find, because the cheapest I could find, which is the most basic version, because I wanted to try out the mouse shape at the lowest price point possible. Honestly, because the Razer Viper Mini has been around since 2020, and in the last 5 years I've never managed to find a wireless clone of the Razer Viper Mini, not a one-to-one shape at least, until Delux made one, and I only recently come across this. For context, I've been using the Delux M800 Mini for about 1 week. I think about 6 days, 5 days, 6 days, and there are some issues I noticed with it, most notably on the software side, but on the hardware side everything seems good. Okay, so if I've compared the shape, and honestly it looks very similar, or almost one-to-one. So you can see that the side profile looks similar in terms of the height. It is similar. I haven't gone into the detailed measurements, but if you are interested in it, there are actually other reviews of the M800 Mini which compare the measurements, and I think it is supposed to be correct. What I have in my particular review here is a comparison of somebody who has really used the Razer Viper Mini for a long while, and my impressions and feelings on it. So in terms of dimensions, it is very similar. So let's look at the bottom. Okay, so if it focuses, give me a while. Let me try and get full focus. Okay. So in terms of bottom, the bottom part is the only point where I find that these two mice differ by a little bit. So the Razer Viper Mini top here, like the tapering in the middle is about the same, and it kind of tapers in the middle, like very narrow middle, which is really good for fine control, and then it straightens out. So it's the same on both the Delux mice as well as the Razer mice. But the Razer Viper Mini, you can see on the top here, the front here, it just elongates a little bit more before it extends into the cable, and that's the only difference that I could see, other than obviously the mouse skates. The size of the mouse skates, I do prefer the Delux application of the skates. The skates on the Delux M800 Mini is better, probably because it's more modern, it's made of better material compared to the old skates from Razer Viper Mini. And then on the back, it looks about the same, just that maybe because of the size of the skates, it looks like it's smaller on the Razer Viper Mini. But in terms of feel, it really feels about the same when I play with both mice. So the only other differences other than the front part, which honestly you probably won't feel, is the details in the buttons and the clicks. So first off, let's talk about the coating. So coating is a pretty big difference. I really like the Razer Viper Mini coating. It's a little bit of a matte coating, and there's no rubber to anything, because rubber is actually a pretty bad idea, because rubber degrades over time, and this is fully plastic. Even though it's fully plastic, the matte coating does give me a decent grip on it. The only problem is that on the Razer Viper Mini, if I start to perspire like I do in hot Singapore, because I'm a Singaporean, hot and humid Singapore, then it gets a little bit slippery sometimes. But most of the time, if I'm not perspiring super hard on my palm, the coating serves well. And the same problem will happen with the Delux M800 Mini as well. Delux M800 Mini coating is a little bit more grippy. I would think too grippy. It has this metallic, shiny kind of surface. It looks matte in the video, but in reality, actually, it is kind of like shiny metallic, and it feels very smooth. It feels a little bit too grippy as compared to the Razer Viper Mini, which is a little bit more matte, which I kind of prefer the Razer Viper Mini coating way more. In terms of the side buttons, the Razer Viper Mini side buttons actually are close together, and you can see that there is a little bit of a gap in the Delux M800 Mini's buttons, and the second button, the mouse 5 button, actually is going up as compared to the Razer Viper Mini's buttons, which actually curves down. And the close proximity of the Razer Viper Mini's 2 buttons makes it easy for me to access, because I'm doing my grip like this, and my thumb has easy access to both mouse 5 and mouse 4 just by, if I tap using this part of my thumb, I can hit mouse 5, and if I want mouse 4, I just tap with the front side of my thumb. But with the Delux M800 Mini, if I want to get mouse 5, because mouse 5 is higher and further away, it's kind of hard. Like, I have to tap it with the base, really near the base of my thumb, which is pretty hard to reach. It's pretty inaccessible, so I have to get mouse 5, I have to arch my thumb all the way back, which is kind of awkward. Mouse 4 is still decently accessible. It's pretty easy to access mouse 4 with the tip of my thumb here, but it makes mouse 5 pretty hard to access. So I still prefer the Razer Viper Mini's application of the mouse 5 buttons and having the mouse 5 closer forward, like have no gap between mouse 4 and 5. Other than that, in terms of the mouse clicks, well, I definitely prefer the Razer Viper Mini one. I believe the Razer Viper Mini comes with the early Razer optical switches, which I like. It's really light, and I prefer the lighter mouse clicks of the Razer optical. The M800 that I have, the M800 Pro, is this is the M800 Mini, so it's not the Pro version nor the Ultra version. So the switches I have here, I believe, are the TTC Go switches, which are mechanical switches. And if you get the higher end model, which is the M800 Mini Pro or the M800 Mini Ultra, I believe you do get the TTC optical switches, which might change the feel of the switches by a lot. So here, the M800 Mini has the TTC Go switches, which are pretty heavy in my opinion, as compared to the Razer Viper Mini's Razer optical switches. So I don't like the heaviness of the mouse clicks. in this version. That's why I would still prefer the Razer Viper Mini more. And well, what else? Scroll wheel. Like scroll wheel, that's the big difference here. The main reason why I cannot use a Razer Viper Mini today or in modern days is because the scroll wheel is busted. And I've seen a lot of online reports of Razer Viper Mini scroll wheels breaking, and other Razer Viper mice having scroll wheels that are broke as well. So it is, I don't know, is it the mouse wheel design or is it the encoder that they use from Razer? It's notoriously famous for breaking. So yeah, but if the mouse wheel doesn't break, I actually do like the light scrolls of the Razer Viper Mini. The Delux M800 Pro has much heavier scrolls. Yeah, the scrolling is a lot heavier, it's not as smooth or light. So I do prefer the Razer Viper Mini scroll wheel as well. Mouse click, Razer Viper Mini's middle mouse click is pretty soft, where the Delux M800 Mini's one is on the stiffer end. So everything from like mouse click, middle mouse button clicks, or middle mouse button scrolling, I would still prefer the Razer Viper Mini's application of it rather than the Delux M800 Mini. But like I mentioned, in terms of mouse click, if you get the TTC optical switches, if you get higher end of the Delux M800 Pro or M800 Ultra, maybe you can have a better click experience there. Okay, so other than that, the other possible clone. Okay, let me just weigh the mice first. Okay, so we'll proceed with a weigh test. So on the spec sheet, the Razer Viper Mini is spec'd to be 61 grams. So let's weigh it. So it weighs a little bit lesser than that. It's 55.8 because the cable is kind of supported. So if I drag the cable away, that will make it go up to about 59 grams. So it's really dependent on the cable, but I would say if you are playing and you have something like a cable dongle or like a cable, something to support the cable, then the Razer Viper Mini does feel lighter than its spec weight of 61. So mostly you should feel like a high 50 gram mouse, like a 59 or like a 60 gram mice most of the time, because it does feel lighter on the Razer Viper Mini. So on the Delux M800 Pro, it is actually 49 grams, so it's actually not too bad. The skates are, it's with all the stock skates and everything. And I was going to say, if we want to compare, there is another clone that we can compare to. So this is a Razer Viper Mini clone from China. And how much does this weigh? So it weighs the same, 59 grams, with the cable dragged away as the Razer Viper Mini. So the Razer Viper Mini clone is the other one that I would bring into the discussion of a comparison with the Delux M800 Mini, because in terms of like the aesthetics and everything, all three of them are pretty similar. Like, I like the fact that the Delux M800 Mini copied these comfort grooves in the mouse clicks, which is the same as what the Razer Viper Mini has. The comfort grooves makes it really comfortable to click, but just that I don't like the application of the TTC Go switches, whereby it's too stiff and too heavy. The Razer Viper Mini clone from China is actually not an original Razer Viper Mini, because I've tested out, the polling rate is different. Maybe I can go into more detailed comparisons later in this video. The polling rate is actually 500 instead of 1000 on the Razer Viper Mini. It's 500 on the clone. And somehow the switches, even though they feel kind of similar, but I don't think they are optical switches. They're probably, to save cost, they're probably mechanical switches. But in terms of the lightness of the click, the mouse wheel and everything, it feels really similar to the Razer Viper Mini. So I do like the clones, switches, mouse wheel and everything, but I do not like the coating. The coating, even though it looks similar on camera, in reality, the cheap Chinese clone of the Razer Viper Mini has a lot of a more slippery plastic coating compared to the more matte coating of the actual Razer Viper Mini. So especially on the back part, this part of the back where you have the Razer logo here, it does light up when you plug it in, but the back part is a lot less matte than on the actual Razer Viper Mini, and you can actually feel it. Yeah. In terms of build quality, the Razer Viper Mini feels better as well, and it's the Razer Viper Mini clone from China. The plastic feels more cheaper somehow. Like it feels like a cheaper, yeah, it feels like using cheaper plastics because of the lack of the matte surface on it. All right, so I'll go into testing the so-called the polling rate as well as the DPI if needed. So basically, let's start with the actual Razer Viper Mini. So this is the original Razer Viper Mini. This is the Chinese knockoff clone, and this is the Delux M800 Mini. So I'm using testufo.com. So if you click on it and you move your mouse continuously, you can see the original Razer Viper Mini is consistent at 1000 Hertz. So if I click to stop, then now we'll move on. So I'll flip this one over. So this is not connected. So maybe I'll just flip it over to show that it's not being measured. So this is the Delux M800 Mini. This is the non-pro, non-ultra version, the most basic version. We'll click on here and start moving it around. You can see that Delux M800 Mini is also at 1000 Hertz. Okay, and then now we'll move on to, let's flip this around and let's connect the clone. Okay, so now the Chinese clone of the Razer Viper Mini is connected, and we'll test its polling rate. And you can see that the Chinese clone Razer Viper Mini is only consistently polling at only 500 Hertz. So that's the issue with this Chinese clone. Is that the Chinese clone, even though it is everything is same, the exact one-to-one as the original Razer Viper Mini in terms of shape, feel, weight, mouse click, as well as scroll wheel, everything, and the scroll wheel works because it's a new mouse. The problem I have with it is its low polling rate, right? Makes it that when I'm gaming with it, it just doesn't seem to perform or track as well as the original Razer Viper Mini in terms of its clicks as well as its swipes. So this is why if you're looking for like a really one-to-one clone of the Razer Viper Mini, you can actually consider the Chinese clone, the knockoff that you can actually find on AliExpress for a relatively cheap price. But this is the so-called the disadvantage of it is that the polling rate is actually a lot lower than what you can do. And Razer Synapse doesn't detect it. So for the original Razer Viper Mini, once you connect to your PC for the first time, it will actually prompt you to install Razer Synapse, which is obviously the very malware-like Razer software that allows you to change your DPI as well as other settings in the mouse. The problem with the clone Razer Viper Mini from China is that when you plug it in to your PC, it actually doesn't detect. So it doesn't detect, and yeah, so it doesn't detect, and you even if you do manually install Razer Synapse, it also doesn't detect this clone mice, so you cannot change the DPI of the clone mice. And I don't know if there's any software online that can change, like I mean the DPI you can change. Wait, can we change? Yeah, you can change using the DPI button. The problem is that you cannot change the polling rate. So the polling rate is set at 500, and there's no software to change it. And this is where the clone of the Chinese clone of the Razer Viper Mini really lets me down. But the Delux M800 Mini actually doesn't, because the Delux M800 Mini it has 1000 Hz polling rate. It has a good sensor. For this one, the sensor is actually inferior. So the M800 Mini non-pro, non-ultra, the lowest end version, only has 3311 sensor, which is actually very old. Because on the actual Razer Viper Mini, I believe you have a 3385 sensor. I am not too sure about that. I have to check. But anyway, the actual Razer Viper Mini has a better sensor than the lowest end version of the Delux M800 Pro. So to get a better sensor, or to get a better sensor, I would say go for the M800 Mini Pro. If you're not if you don't need 8K polling rate, you can go for the M800 Mini Pro, the lightweight version, or the normal M800 Mini Pro, or you can go for the M800 Mini Ultra if you want an even better sensor, which is I think the 3950, something like that. Like the best sensor is on the M800 Mini Pro. Okay, so another thing that is pretty annoying on the Delux M800 Mini Pro is inbuilt firmware, especially when it comes to DPI sensing. So I'm sure most of you are aware that for most mice, right, the default is when it comes to DPI stepping, they will come in like 400, 800, 1006 DPI, and then it will jump to 3002, and I think it will double again to 6004, and then finally after that it will jump back to like 400 DPI. But for some weird reason for the Delux M800 Mini, as well as I think because it is the same firmware for the Pro as well as the Ultra version, is that it goes 400, 800, 1002, and then 1006. And this is super annoying actually, because I've been using this mouse for a week, and the first 4 to 5 days of using this mouse, I had no idea that I was stuck on 1200 DPI when my preferred DPI has always been 1006 on the actual Razer Viper Mini. So yeah, and somehow I was like, this mouse felt a little bit more sluggish, but I wasn't a good enough gamer. I wasn't sensitive enough to detect that it actually wasn't 1006, because the DPI button is actually below. So let me move it to this. So the DPI button is actually below, and when you like press it once, obviously it changes the DPI. And I will show you via the software now. So another note is for the software, you have to manually install it. There's no web-based software, which is super annoying, because even for other Chinese mice these days, such as MCHOs, Mad Lions, and so on, they all use very good web-based software. But Deluxe still doesn't have it for this M800 Mini, which is really annoying, because most of the time, all this software, this manually installed software, is considered malware. You really don't want to take the risk of installing malware on your PC. So if you look at it, as I press the DPI button, yep, so you will go, the highest is actually 5000 DPI for weird reason. It's not 6004. Then if I go to, the base is 400, right? So we will start off with 400. You'll feel really slow. So that's 400 for sure. And then you press it once, you will go to 800. So it feels like 800. And then when you press it the third time, I would have expected most other mice to be at 1006. So to me, it feels like, I think it's 1006, but I wasn't good enough or sensitive enough of a gamer to find it, to detect it. So I was playing with 1002, and somehow my mouse just felt sluggish, especially when it came to playing FPS like Apex Legends. And this is really boggles my mind. Like, why would they put 1002 DPI in here? Why don't they just skip this and just go with the popular 1006, 3002, and then 6004? Maybe this, because this mouse sensor doesn't have 6004, because it's a 3311 sensor. It's a very old sensor. That could be why, but still 1002 boggles my mind, and it bugs me out, because if I don't have Razer Synapse installed, but let's do a mouse analyzer here. So let me plug in. Okay, so this is the original Razer Viper. This is the original Razer Viper Mini that's plugged in, and let's change the DPI, because I don't have Razer Synapse installed, so I can't tell right via software, but I can tell via feel. So this is the highest and this is the slowest, right? So I'm gonna press it one time. So it goes to, this is probably 800, and let's measure this. So using a multi-pack analyzer. So how we use this analyzer is that I like to measure 10 centimeters on my mouse pad. So it's about here to here, 10 centimeters. So here distance is at 10 cm, and you can start from 0. So you just hold down the mouse button, then you drag it for 10 centimeters to the right. Okay, so maybe let me do it again. I didn't do it that well. Let me try it again. So at 0, drag it to the right. Yep. So it's 900. It's close to 800. Let's do it again. Pull down, drag it 10 centimeters to the right. Yeah, 900 dpi. So maybe it's close to 800 dpi. So this is the second step. If I press it again on the Razer Viper Mini, this feels like the dpi I usually play at. And if I click here, drag it for 10 centimeters, it's 1008, which is about close to 1006. So the sensor itself might not be super accurate. Let me try again. Yep. So this one is about 1008 again. So close to 1600 DPI, but this is still at least close to what a DPI that I usually play at. So now I'm going to flip the Razer Viper Mini away. So this is the Delux M800 Mini. And let's go to the lowest DPI setting first. Nope. Oh. Okay, so this is the lowest DPI setting. It's probably 400. We will press it once, and this should be 800, right? So let's do a sanity check. Press and drag for 10 centimeters. Yep, so it's 800 DPI, as you can see here. And then I press it a third time. It feels like 1006. Somewhat like 1006. Okay, no, I need to bring it on the screen. And it's 1001. So again, let's measure again. 1003. So it's actually 1200 DPI based on software, but it's nowhere near 2006. And it's just a little bit sluggish. And it's like, if you're not a good enough gamer, if you're not a pro gamer, if you're not a high ranked FPS gamer, you might not, as in your casual gamer like me, you might not be sensitive enough to detect the difference between 1002 and 1006 immediately until you play your favorite FPS games and you feel like something is just off. So for the first 4 days of me trying out this mice, it boggles my mind as to why the Delux M800 Pro didn't feel as good as my Razer Viper Mini. Like, I just felt like it's a bit off in my tracking. I couldn't chase things better. It felt a little bit slow. And until I finally pressed the DPI button one more time, and then I felt like, oh, wait, this feels really similar, but it feels a little bit better. Okay, so let me measure it again. Yep, and then it's close to 1006. Let me try again. Oh, try again. Yep, 1005. So now it's close to 1006 DPI. And when I finally figured out that they had 1200 DPI in between 800 and 1006, yeah, then I finally managed to have the DPI set to 1006 on the M800 Mini, and it solved all the problems. And then this mice became good to use.